Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Education is the Key. This is our first episode. My name is Brother Troy, and I have with me,
I'm Brother Bobby.
and we're gonna be honest and straight up. First of all, is that we haven't figured this all out yet. So you are welcome in our journey as we figure out and kind of work out all of what this show is. But what we intend on doing today is giving you a little bit of the who, the what, and why that we do have. And inshallah, we'll have a little discussion about education from our perspective. And of course, we couldn't have a show dealing with education without the person that inspires us, or one of the people that inspires us the most, and that's the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
Right. And matter of fact, I mean, that's where we got the title for Education is the Key. There was a book that was put out that is a talk, a message that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan gave in 1984. And so it was given the title Education is the Key. And we just thought that was a perfect title for a podcast.
And honestly, we came up with that like actually right before we started, a few minutes ago before we started. So praise to Allah. We're interested. We're not necessarily totally sold on it. We actually do kind of like it, but we're definitely open to your inputs, your thoughts, and your opinions as we move forward. And that's what we're really looking for, is that this show, of course, is something that we're inspired to do, but we want this show is not just for us, is that it's really for the audience, and we want to do something that will inspire and encourage and motivate us to move out on the guidance that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has given us, as well as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So let's kind of jump into the who, what's, whens, and wheres, and all of that stuff that we talked about, Brother Bobby.
Yes, sir. Well, you know who we are. I'm Brother Bobby Muhammad. I've been in education for quite some time, going back to probably 1999, however many years that is. Was that 23 years? Am I doing my math right? So around 23 years in education. I am a science instructor, and I've been inspired. Even though I've been in education 23 years, I've been in the Nation of Islam almost 30. So everything that I have done in education has always had and been filtered through the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So even though much of my work has been in the public school system, it's always been influenced by what I have learned from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan as he represents the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Well, praise to Allah. And actually, that's interesting. I'm a little different in that, I was really, before I got registered in the Nation, I thought that I was going to be actually a kindergarten teacher. I don't know if I've ever shared that story with you. Well, it sounded like a good idea, but
Okay.
I like children, and I thought that, I saw potential there. I actually started coming around in 1990, around the Nation of Islam in 1990, but I didn't get registered until 98. But at one point in time, my goal and actually desire is that I wanted to open up a school. I went through different phases in my development. I wanted to open up an African-centered school, and that journey just kind of has evolved. But that was always, since I could remember, when I actually really seriously started thinking about what my profession would be. When I went past that, I wanted to be a pirate and those types of interesting things. That seriously, it was at one point in time I wanted to be a lawyer, but then I settled on actually with the desire to be a teacher, and I knew I didn't want it to be like the experience that I had. There were things that I appreciated, but I always saw it as a very powerful tool and instrument to impact and create a new reality.
That is interesting. That's super interesting. And I don't know really what guided me into being a teacher. I just love science. I had no thought of ever being a teacher ever in life. I actually wanted to be a pathologist. And when I was in college, my dad was like, "Well, why you want to major in biology? You gonna be a doctor?" I'm like, "No, I don't want to be a doctor." I said, "I want to deal with issues before they happen." And so that's what a pathologist does. And so to me, education is very similar. You want to prepare yourself for whatever it is you're going to run into so that you can handle it when you run into it, preparing in advance. And of course, some of the greatest inspiration we've received has been from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So I think we're going to show some clips that have inspired us to do what we're doing now.
Well, hey, once you mentioned the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, I really don't have nothing to say. So let's jump to the clips, and we'll see you back in a few.
We have to take over the educational system. Because the education that you're receiving has not made you a good people or a better people. It made you a more willing tool or slave for your oppressor. That system has to go in order for black people to be set free. All educators, I'm calling on you. We got to take over. We got brilliant educators. We don't need to accept this poison doctrine of white supremacy any longer. The educators, we want to open with a ministry of education that develops a curriculum for all ghetto schools. Not just for Chicago, but once we develop it, it has to be accepted. See, we're like colonies now. Not the 13 colonies, but in all the major cities, there's a ghetto. The Chinese not called a ghetto. They're in a separate community, but they control the education, the politics, the business of their community. And they function pretty good, separate. We got together and had an online university where people can sit and have classes in every discipline and don't have to leave their home. See, the moment you outthink the enemy, he'll give you this.
All praises are due to Allah. All praises are due to Allah. Very, very powerful 3 messages that I would encourage everyone, if you have not had the opportunity to check them out, and even if you had, you can't hear those words, those of guidance, too much. So, of course, that was the Justice or Else keynote address, which was 10-10-15. And then there was that's October 10th, 2015. Then the next day, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan addressed a smaller group, which was 10-11, October 11th, 2015. And the one that really resonates with me the most, honestly, because I remember hearing that lecture the first time, and that was June 8th, 2005. And it was Healing Begins in the Mind, I believe is the title. And he had it was an address at Kennedy King College. And I won't go into that. I'll say that for another story, another opportunity at another time to tell that story. But, you know, the fact that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan was talking about online education in 2005. 2005. You know, that's, you know, is a lot to that. And
that's vision.
And well, it's vision, but you know, that's part of the reason why we're doing this show, is to inspire us to move at a quicker pace of the words of guidance, and not just guidance. You know, the minister gives us guidance, but you know, some things really aren't just guidance; they're really instructions.
Right.
You know, so it's not really to guide you or suggest it. It's really, you know, there's certain things that are necessary and required for us to continue to survive and to thrive and to exist. And if we don't follow that, well, you know, somebody will come along that will replace us. I don't want to do that.
Right. That brings to mind, we always hear the term, a hint to the wise is sufficient. But I don't know, when did I ever get wise? You know, the hint hasn't been sufficient because we haven't moved out like we should. Um, and I'm speaking from self first. And it's something we definitely need to do because the time is so critical. In that piece, in those three pieces, proper educational system,
Mm-hmm.
and I've had enough experience in the improper educational system, which does a little bit of good but a whole lot of harm. And then the whole ministry, the direction for us to establish a ministry of education, and understanding that ministry means that you are serving in a
Right.
capacity to address the needs. And the minister has said that every human need is a human right, and education is one of those needs. And then, of course, the online piece that you just highlighted, and I've been involved in that as well. We'll talk about that at another time. But it inspired me in 2015. It was 2015 to start Muhammad Online Science Academy, which is an effort that is an ongoing effort that we'll talk about at another time. So these are all uh, results of the inspiration of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And so, like you said, Brother Troy, we really want to be able to bring people together, to get to work, to gather and pull the resources. That's what he talked about, pulling our resources. We already have everything we need. All we just need is the organization and the commitment to the vision that's already been laid out.
And that's one of the things, we did a show before on called the new educational paradigm, and that was part of the goal of that, is going through the 9 ministries and beginning to look at and identify the skills that we already have. And what you see is that sometimes we really don't necessarily believe full-heartedly what we say, that we have all that we need, but it definitely demonstrates when you see the work that Student Minister Ava is doing with Project Separation and the show that they have. You really begin to see not just what we need to do, and sometimes we can sometimes be a little too hard on ourselves and saying what we're not doing anything. But one of the goals of this show is that we want to highlight those people who are doing something, because there's a lot more individuals that are working towards what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad called for, as well as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, which those things aren't different. So we want to highlight those in hopes, with the desire to encourage and inspire you and give you and provide you a platform to express and demonstrate and show to others what you're doing, and which will, inshallah, God willing, will show them what they have the ability to do as well.
It is so encouraging. To your point, it is so encouraging to find out some of the things that are happening all across our nation. And when we say that, the minister highlighted that we're not just looking at producing, an educational system just for, the small group or the mosque or the Nation of Islam. It's for all of our people that are in need. And the things that we've learned, and there's some things you've learned recently that are going on in the nation, is very inspirational. And if you don't know that these things are going on, you can get disheartened. But once you find out some of the things that are happening, it absolutely lifts you up and inspires you to continue in the work.
And I want to encourage everyone to please put in the chat or wherever you're viewing this, share the resources, share the links of things that you know are going on, share and make suggestions of guests that you think would be great candidates to be on the show, that you would like to hear from, or you think that others would benefit from. Of course, one of the spots that I definitely would encourage you to check out is projectseparation.com. Which was, by Allah's grace and permission, spearheaded in truth by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. But Student Minister Ava actually took up that mantle and has, by Allah's permission and guidance of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, been pushing that for several years at this point. And it goes back to what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said. And I think those words, sometimes it's important that we lift those words and words of guidance that he's given us, and really parse them, because sometimes we can really get caught up into saying or making that which is divine wisdom, we can make it cliche. Not that it is cliche, but we can make it cliche. So he said that separation is the best and only solution. It's the best and only solution. So that means that all that we're working towards should be for separation. There shouldn't be a day that we wake up and we're not thinking about what he has given us as the best and only solution.
And it's interesting. You said parsing the words, and one of the words that we were discussing earlier was the word key.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like what is a key? And I think you looked at the definition in some dictionaries and just wasn't satisfied. But basically, a key is that which unlocks something that is locked up. And in this book, the minister talks about how we're locked up in so many different ways and how we need a key to get us unlocked and to be able to just enjoy life and to be able to actually walk into and fulfill our purpose. We have to have the key. And the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan says education is that key, but it's got to be proper education. A lot of times, Brother Troy, it seems like when we talk about education, it kind of like, you know, it may be like a turnoff, you know, because
Mm-hmm.
we equate education with being in school or being in a classroom, and we just are very adverse to that because of our experience. But I think maybe if we really not only understood what education was, but had the proper educational system and methods and curriculum, that we would just see it totally different.
And I think that's a good segue. I don't know if that was the intentional setup for us to move into the next portion of our discussion, but just really, we have to, without a doubt. What study guide number? Help me out. 20. Is it 20? Is it 21? Is
Oh, for
titled the new
educational
education
paragraph,
paradigm.
21.
Yeah, so
21.
21 is that which the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan talks about, what this world has set up as education. And it's an interesting study, which the minister touches on. But the history of education in this country and just the history of education and public education is very important to be aware of, even if it's just on a surface level. Is that free education is important in a society because it serves in part as a tool of socialization, which I know in many instances our experience with that hasn't necessarily been the best. And even with those who are considered the so-called Native Americans, it definitely wasn't a good experience for them. But when we think about what our goal is and our vision is, the proper education is definitely key and something that we have to look at and make sure. And I wouldn't even say redefine but take what we're given from the Latin root, which the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has shared on multiple occasions, that education means to bring forth or bring out. So with that said, I don't know if there's a few other words you want to share before we jump into the book.
Just if the viewers can see the overlay or the background to the podcast, you'll see it says education is the key, and you can barely kind of see. Oh, you see right there in the middle where you have the key, and the part that's doing the unlocking is the word success. Yeah, so right there you got the word success. And recently in one of our study groups, Brother Troy, you may recall, student minister Ava, she was talking about success, and she said in order to know whether or not you're successful, you have to have a goal and you have to be clear on that goal.
Absolutely.
And so if we look at this, education is the key book. And if you look at the very first part of the book, which should come up on the screen here, it talks about the greatest of goals. And so in order to be successful, we have to have goals. And there is a goal that is greatest. And it reads, "It is truly wonderful in our life when each of us can choose a road on which to travel, and yet as we travel apparently different roads, we recognize that all roads lead to Almighty God, the creator of the heavens and the earth. As children, we all want everyone to be what we are, but the Holy Quran teaches us that Allah God has created man for diverse ends. So each of us as human beings have different goals. As the Holy Quran teaches us, every man or woman has a goal to which he or she turns him or herself. Maybe your goal is not mine, and maybe mine is not yours, but the test of our human development is whether we can be tolerant of each other as we pursue our goals. For surely the ends for which men strive will be seen. Those who love the frail life of this world, Allah God will give them of it, And those who desire the life of the hereafter, and that is the best of desires, Allah will give them of that. Although God never leaves his creatures without permitting them to attain what they seek, he inspires us to attain lofty things. There are those among the human family who do not desire to attain lofty goals. And I do not mean being a doctor, lawyer, teacher, physicist, chemist, or musician. In the language of religion, the loftiest goal for which men and women should strive is the development of their character. That their character should reflect the divine supreme being. This is the greatest of goals. Not to have a PhD degree, even though if you are so blessed, even though you are so blessed if you have one, to have a degree of knowledge and not the high degree of character means that your degree serves vain purposes. To be knowledgeable and wicked makes us devils in human form. To be knowledgeable and righteous makes us men and women of distinction.
Praise to Allah. Very, very, very powerful words from this book, Education is Key, by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. As you were reading, one of the things that popped up is, of course, we got to always send a shout out to study group, the course of study that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has us on, which is self-improvement, the basis for community development. And I've heard Student Minister Ava on many occasions reference and say that it could be possibly renamed to How to Become a God 101. So that,
Right.
that process of us developing ourselves is of the utmost importance. Is that's what the goal is that Allah has deposited something of value in us, and how do we extract and bring that out for not just the benefit of the individual, but the benefit of the community.
Yeah, and that is the course that builds our character. And I think we have like the reading we just read, we have plenty of people that have knowledge, but their character is less than it should be, and then it produces the world that we have. And so it's education, part of that, and that's like something that's a popular thing to talk about, character education. But that has to be real. And I just don't know of any realer course than the course you just mentioned, self-improvement course given to us by the Honorable Mr. Louis Farrakhan.
And I don't know if you have the quote with you now, but it's something, and I'm quite sure you can summarize it. And it really has laid heavy on my mind that you lifted some words. I believe it was from the Swan Song, in terms of just the importance that what it is that if we don't submit to this level, that we won't achieve the goals that we aspire for. Remember what quote?
I don't recall. I'm gonna look and see if I have it right here, because if I do, I'll have it right here on my phone.
But you do remember what I was talking, because you actually mentioned it. We do study group on Sundays as well, because we can't get enough. But
right,
you lifted it at that point in time of just really looking at how, even no matter what you may be doing, that if we're not developing ourselves and we're not striving to do all of those things and find ourselves in total submission, that we really won't really achieve the success that we desire or aspire for.
Okay. Yes, sir.
So, man, I know that's a lot. Go ahead, please.
No, I was gonna say, I would be curious, because you had that up on the screen. Oh, and where can they get? Listen, I don't know that this book is available. More than likely, I pray that it is. But I'll put in the chat if I'm able to. You can call the final call. You can go to the website, but you can also call directly. Call the final call in Chicago at 1-866-602-1230.
That's in our private chat, but I will create it in the public area right here. I don't know if you. Oh, actually, we can't do it on here, but I know where I'll put it. I'll put it right here, and in just a moment, you'll see it scrolling at the bottom of the screen. Bam. There we go. So final call, as you mentioned, you can call them at 1-866 602-1230, and that is extension 200. Extension 200. And I mean, with that, I don't know how we could forget. And as we talk about not just information, there's a difference from having information, which is a step. We have to have the proper information.
Mm-hmm.
And part of having that proper information is having your subscription to the Final Call newspaper.
Absolutely.
So, if in a world like this where there's so much misinformation, and to evoke the words of the previous president, there's a lot of fake news. Then you want to definitely, in this day and time, make sure that you're accessing truth and proper guidance, and you can get that every week in the Final Call newspaper,
which is available physically as a physical paper or digitally. So you can get a digital subscription as well. And that is a wonderful tool to be able to get into the reading of the various articles in the Final Call. Absolutely.
Praise be to Allah. So I think we covered everything that we wanted to cover in this episode. I don't know if I forgot anything. I know we end out.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we're going to end out with a special little presentation that I hope you're getting prepped for, to show a particular website, or are we going to wait for another episode?
I don't know. I guess we can wait for another episode.
Okay.
This is a nice little introduction piece just to show where we're going, and we definitely want input from the viewers. There's some folks we want to bring on here, to your point earlier, Brother Troy, that are already doing some big things in education. Some things that we just learned of recently. We want to bring them on the show and let them highlight the work that they're doing. And we really want to also really make sure that we have a broader scope of understanding when it comes to education. We're not just talking about math and reading and science and all of that. There's a whole lot. Everything that we want to do, we got to be educated into doing. So it's a very broad scope, and we want to be able to make this podcast broad in scope, but also very focused, so that we can have the kind of impact that we desire.
Yes, sir. And I mean, just echoing that sentiment, which we talked about prior, is that, as we were coming up with the name, is I didn't want us to be put into a box. Exactly. And of course, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, you can help me with this quote. But he said basically that, we don't necessarily need a building. He said you can teach them under a tree. Mm-hmm. That the Muhammad University of Islam is not called a university because of what we may consider by the standards of this world and how we define a university, but it's really the study of the universe. It's everything. It's everything. There's nothing that's not encompassed on what the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad gave us as the curriculum for education.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So we look forward to hearing your comments, your thoughts, suggestions, things that you would like to see or hear or to be covered. And we definitely want to start including, our audience, and having you to share, during the shows as well.
And I didn't even think about it. And sometimes, we can set up that we'll have discussions that we can actually bring. We can send you a link and bring you in and get your comments and your feedback.
Absolutely.
So
live.
Definitely, we're looking forward to your feedback, your input to make this show that which will serve you and help to reach our goal, which is, of course, to encourage and inspire us to do what the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said. We got to get up and do something for ourselves. Praise you to Allah. Thank you for joining us once again. Well, I said once again. Thanks for joining
for the first time. Thank you for joining for this first time.
And please make sure that you like, you share, you spread the word, you comment, so that we can get this show to as many viewers as possible that who would be interested in hearing it. And if you stayed this long, we know you enjoying it. So don't be stingy and make sure you share with somebody else.
Absolutely.
Until next time, assalamu alaikum. Peace be unto you.